providing spiritual guidance and hope.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today on the Enlightened Hearts podcast. I am so glad you've carved out a few minutes of your day to sit down, grab a coffee, and unpack this with me. Before we dive into the deep end, do me a quick favor. If these reflections are helping you navigate your faith in the middle of real, everyday life, hit that subscribe button. It keeps us connected, and it helps other people find this community too. So, let's talk about the trap of the checklist. We live in a world that loves to quantify everything. We track our steps, we track our calories, we track our productivity, and if we aren't careful, we start tracking our holiness the exact same way. We think, okay, I said my prayers, I avoided the big sins today, I did my good deed. Check, check, check. We build this neat little spiritual cage, and we think it makes us safe. But in today's Gospel from Mark, a scribe walks up to Jesus and asks a question that blows up the entire system. He asks, "Which is the first of all the commandments?" Now you have to understand the context here. First-century religious life was incredibly complex. The great masters like Hillel and Shammai were constantly debating how to summarize the vast landscape of Jewish law. But Jesus doesn't just offer a clever academic shortcut. He takes the hundreds of rules we use to measure ourselves, and he distills them down into a raw, unavoidable reality. Love God with everything you've got, your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. It sounds simple, right? But it's actually terrifying, because you can fake a checklist, but you cannot fake love. This isn't a new struggle. Human nature has always preferred a rigid rule over a vulnerable relationship. The Catechism in paragraph 20 and 83 reminds us that the commandments are actually an organic whole. To break one is to break them all. You cannot detach your love for God from the way you treat the person cutting you off in traffic or the coworker who takes credit for your project. The early church fathers saw this clearly. St. Augustine famously noted that love is the very weight of the soul. It moves us wherever we go. If our religious habits don't change how we love, they are just empty choreography. And this wraps right back into who God has always revealed himself to be. Think back to our previous reflections on the burning bush when God spoke to Moses. He didn't introduce himself as a distant set of abstract rules. He said, "I am who I am." He revealed himself as absolute, living, dynamic being, a personal presence. He is, as the scriptures say, the God of the living, not of the dead. So, how does a living God make this radical call to love actually possible for us when we are so prone to failing? He gives us himself. All of this, the entire trajectory of salvation history, points directly to the King of the Sacraments, the Holy Eucharist. On the altar, the great distillation isn't just a concept anymore. It becomes flesh and blood. Jesus doesn't just tell us to love with all our strength. He shows us on the crucifix, and he hands that perfected love to us in the breaking of the bread. In the Eucharist, our broken, checklist-loving hearts are consumed by his heart. The law stops being a burden outside of us and becomes a living fire inside of us. Let's take that truth into a moment of quiet reflection with the following haiku to think about during your day. The burning bush flames. He is God of the living. Bread of life remains. Thank you again for listening today. Next time, we are diving into our upcoming Trench Reflection blog, where things get even more intense as we celebrate the memorial of St. Boniface. We'll be looking at Mark chapter 12, verses 35 to 37, where Jesus turns the tables on the authorities by asking, "How can the scribes say that the Christ is the son of David?" We're going to unpack the hidden authority of God that unmasks our cultural expectations. You definitely don't want to miss it. Until then, step off the legalistic treadmill, rest in his presence, go love deep, and with that, See you next time.